Darren Tuttle here for Ferguson Roof Systems. For 43 years, Ferguson Roof Systems has been protecting Oklahoma's homes and businesses with quality roofing services. Their goal was to be the most honest and dependable roofing company in the state, all while providing free services such as lifetime labor warranty and annual inspections. Well, mission accomplished with thousands of client testimonials, an A+ Better Business Bureau rating, and a 5-star rating on Google. Look, the weather gives you enough to worry about, so why worry about who to trust with your roof? Call Ferguson Roof Systems today or find out more at fergusonroofsystems.com.
Hey everyone, Meteorologist Darren Tuttle here with you about 9:24. We're going to be talking about an interesting turn of events, especially if you've been living under a rock the last few days, as we've been talking here for a while about a mixture of ice, basically in the form of freezing rain, sleet, and then snow, moving back in Oklahoma. So I'm checking out your comments right now real quick on Facebook Live. I see you, Lisa, with sending me some stars tonight. Same thing with Andrew and Carrie. Appreciate you guys. Diana, as always. Mr. Cleburne's begging for that snow down in Dallas. My friend Stephen Earp is in the house as well. Good to see you, brother. So tell you what, we've got so much to cover, so I'm just going to jump right into it. And if you're late to the party, I apologize. We'll do a recap, toward the end for those that are late, but we got to get moving because there's a lot going on here. Okay, so first off for today, we had quite a bit of rainfall, in case you didn't notice, and amounts ended up being 1 inch to 2 inches in some of these areas here in the darker green, just south and east of Oklahoma City and just south and west of Tulsa. And this band also happened to be the snow band for today that's set up. If you remember in last night's forecast models, it had 2 areas of the snow band in this area, then there was one that hinted at it down here in this area. Well, guess what? This one won and this one lost, which means for you guys seeing the snow, Tulsa got hammered today, and of course it trailed back here to Purcell, a very narrow, about a 15-mile width of some snow. I was so irritated because I'm like, to be able to forecast that exact position of a 15-mile band is impossible. I gave my best, but hey, some of you got it and the rest of us didn't, but that's just the way it goes. You will not have that kind of luck as we head into tomorrow night and Friday, I'm afraid. So we've got, as I said, some big stuff coming. The first thing I want to show you is the National Weather Service. Remember how I told you that they would expand the winter storm watch east? Well, they've done that. Now includes Ponca City area down to just west of Oklahoma City, just north of Lawton, back here in southwest Oklahoma. And they've peppered in a winter weather advisory in between. Now, I'll tell you the trend here, like I've been telling you for the last few times, they're going to continue to shove this more to the east and southeast. And this winter storm watch will be replaced with a winter storm warning, probably even a blizzard warning, probably even an ice storm warning. So there'll be a mixture of warnings out there. All of them indicate inclement weather here as we head to Thursday night and Friday morning. So what is the big thing for today? Well, I was talking to a buddy of mine, Jeff Petrosky. He's a smart dude. He is basically a backyard meteorologist, and he is one of the best in the business. And he asked me the question, the $1 million question. He goes, of all the stuff you've seen so far, what stands out the most? I said, well, our dew point here in Oklahoma City is 24 degrees. He said, right on the money. So the issue here is the models have no clue that we're this dry in the atmosphere over central and northwest Oklahoma. These dew points here are all into the teens to low 20s. Y'all have been out here in the panhandle, low teens, even some single digits. Why this comes into play, this is huge when it comes for ice, because a lot of times this drier air sags southward across the state slowly. Kind of almost like a density, gravity type situation versus like a big push of air from a north wind. Even though we do have north wind, so there is some moderate, or I should say light cold air advection. So there is some light dry air advection as well with it. But that dry air kind of just pulls inward when you have a developing storm system way down south like we do into Texas and even Mexico. So this is what it looks like in an atmospheric sounding. So the temperature, this is the dew point, a lot of dry air in between the two. This blue line is the wet bulb temperature. This is the important keynote here, because once this red line and the green line meet, they usually saturate on the plus side of 50-50. So we'll call it 75 or 70%. If you were to take the two together, they're not going to meet exactly in the middle. They're going to meet kind of heavy on the temperature end of things. So that puts the dew point value for the wet bulb maxing out to about 32 degrees Fahrenheit or 0 degrees, and that might be a stretch. It might end up being about 30 degrees or 31. Regardless, it's left of this blue line right here. So this is a big factor for tomorrow, because as this light precipitation falls and fills this in, we're going to saturate the atmosphere. It's going to take some time, but when it happens, freezing rain just like that. All right, and that'll be called, we call it flash freezing rain, I guess we could say. So here's a look at the storm system out here on the water vapor loop. It is down here, my friends. I don't know if you can see this, but this is Mexico. And the center of the low is just hanging off the coastline here, and then wrapping back around. Now, as you can see, it is pumping in a large area of moisture. So two things are important for this development. One, the low is developing way more to the southwest than the models originally had it, and way more south into Mexico. That's the one issue. Second issue is there's not a dense network down here where this current low is, so it doesn't have a good exact idea on how strong and how developed it is yet, because it's not over a densely populated network of weather sensors and balloons. And I'll show you that here in a second. But what it does say is, since it's a little behind schedule, the heavier precipitation will come in a little later. But we may end up getting quite a bit more of it. There's just a lot more moisture that'll feed in out ahead of it, and a lot of cloud cover for tomorrow. And it could end up causing precipitation to start just a little bit early, just because eventually this may saturate. So these lows can be really tricky to deal with down here in northern Mexico. Now we talk about the sounding network. This is the balloon sounding. We launch balloons into the atmosphere to gather storm systems. Remember, the low is right here. So it is not near any balloon sounding. There's one over here, one over here, one down here, one down here. So if these are all come in, at least it does surround it in a wider picture. It just doesn't have the center part. But that's fine. The low will move through this network and then into southwest Texas, and it'll get picked up by a couple of more. So the models will continue to improve in their tracking ability. Now, right now, the upper level low down here across the Mexico area, indicated by the models, will be zipping through like this and then up like this. So we're going to put this into motion for you. And this is our storm system. This is what's going to be bringing us the nasty winter weather. We've got the cold air in place. The upper level low comes in across. Track moves right across the eastern parts of Oklahoma Thursday night and a Friday morning, then moving off into Missouri. You do see on the back end of this another upper level low that swings on in here. And remember, I mentioned this the last couple of nights. This will likely produce a little bit of light snow as it tracks over central Oklahoma. So that's Friday night and a Saturday morning. So as we go through time, here is Friday night. There's Saturday morning. It closes off into a low right over Tulsa. So it might surprise us and produce a little bit more than originally I was thinking. Like a dusting of snow is what I was thinking, or some flurries. We may get a couple of dry inch or two of snow out of that, because the snow ratios will be quite a bit different. There'll be a lot more dry air in the atmosphere, which means more of that fluffy, puffy stuff, which you really can't make a snowball with or anything. But it does blow off the roadways quite well. Anyway, that's just move on out. Now, that was look at the NAM model and the big picture. Look at the Canadian, because I have been leaning on the Canadian for this entire forecast period. It has been the most consistent, the most solid. It made the most sense versus all the other models. And now the other models are starting to trend toward the Canadian model, which gives me great confidence that we're on the right path here as far as the forecast goes. So this has the upper level low moving through eastern Oklahoma. So by Friday morning, it is right here. It's probably right around McAllister. And remember, as I talked to you before, if you're new here, all the precipitation, the winter precipitation, is on an axis line. So it'll all be on the left side of the upper level low in this particular case. And then on the east side, it's just a chilly rain, because warm air will filter in and upper levels of the atmosphere to warm things up. So there will be a hard line in the sand of feast or famine. There'll be, those that have and those that have not when it comes to winter precipitation. And right now, the best guess is that line is going to be running from right around Tulsa through Oklahoma City metro area and back down to southwest Oklahoma. All right, so that means no winter precipitation expected down here in southeast Oklahoma, nor in Dallas-Fort Worth. Looks like it's just going to be out west of you guys. So I still haven't seen any trend to change that. So earlier I talked about the dew point value and why that mattered. I want to show you that the only model that has a clue that we're even close to a 24-degree dew point is the Canadian, and it says we have about a 27 or 28. So it's still off by about 4 degrees. It's not off by 6 or 7 like a lot of the other models, but that's a big difference when it comes to winter storm forecasting. And watch what happens to put this into motion for you. I'm going to animate this through tonight, through tomorrow morning. Our dew point drops to 22. We're in the teens out here north and west. Now the air will mix a little bit for tomorrow, so we'll rebound lunchtime around 27, 28. And as that moisture starts to fall from the upper atmosphere, we'll start to moisten that lower level. So our dew point's at 28 and then 29 by 9 p.m. tomorrow. So this is the key element here. Watch what happens at midnight. It's still 29. I'm just focused on Oklahoma City. You can see Tulsa's at 32, so you guys are right at the point where you'll be dealing with some winter precipitation. And down here toward Lawton, of course, easy back here in the west. As we go into the Friday morning into the mid-morning hours, we're still into the 20s. And we don't change any. Now, it's just wrapping up and moving out by then. But even to Tulsa goes to show you that we're going to have temperatures favorable for ice and freezing rain here. And when the temperature's a little bit colder, you'll have more snow that'll mix in the profiles of the atmosphere. So this is kind of an idea of how this will work. So the drier air will filter in ahead of it, and it'll cause the wet bulbing to mix out, the freezing line, as you might say, to mix out farther south. So again, from Tulsa to south of the metro, probably down toward Norman or so, and then toward Lawton. So that'll be the freezing line when this precipitation starts to move in late tomorrow. So other models have it as early as late afternoon. The Canadian is going a little extra drier in the sounding, and that might be an error, just in the mid-levels. We'll take a look at another model here in a minute that may have a better idea of the dryness for the timing, but this will give us the general picture here. So as you can see, as the rain moves in by Friday evening, it's in that pink shading. So that means freezing rain, and it means heavy freezing rain with probably lightning and thunder in this red area coming in Oklahoma County and all of central Oklahoma by midnight on Friday. Now it does start to have this purple and blue in here sneak in. That's a transition to snow. So it does try to make it snow as this wraps up by Friday morning. There's 9 o'clock in the morning, some lingering snow here in the central Oklahoma area, but then that starts to move off to the north. And yes, Tulsa through lunchtime, you get some snow and some freezing rain. So to back this out in time, you can see how close the freezing line is for Tulsa County. North and west, you're in it. South and east, you're probably at 33 degrees or 32.5 or 32.1, something like that. So remember, we're talking about tenths of a degree make a difference in your outcome. As we head into the morning hours for Tulsa, so you're still probably going to get a mixture of freezing rain, sleet, and snow in the early Friday morning hours. So it'll be enough to coat the ground, bridges, and overpasses, that's for sure. In addition to the snow, of course, you got today. All right, so that's kind of an overall broad view of that particular situation. Before I show you the totals, let me do this real quick. I'm going to show you the sounding forecast. And I'll tell you why things can be the way they are. So we'll start with, where are we? 24 hours. Yeah, let's go 24 hours. Okay, we're going to do 24 hours to Thursday night, tomorrow evening. Okay, so the atmosphere here is starting to moisten up. These two lines are getting pretty close, but they're pretty far apart here, so pretty dry. But there's that 34 to 26 dew point depression, which places the wet bulb below freezing for the Canadian. And the sounding says it's going to be rain, but both this will be a lot of this evaporating if it were to stay that dry. Now, I have my doubts. I think it'll be moister than that, so it'll start sooner. But regardless, the profile stands for freezing rain here because we've got this warm nose right here, and this is to the right side of this 0 degree line, 0 degrees Celsius or 32 degrees Fahrenheit. In other words, the freezing line. So it's to the right of that, which means it melts here to rain, and then it gets back to the left of that line, and it refreezes on contact, and that's how we get the sleet and the freezing rain. All right, we'll go one more time here. This is through, I think, the midnight hour, and it's full-blown solid as far as the lines being close to one another. Freezing rain still in the forecast sounding, so the Canadian, as a result, is going to go a lot more ice than it is more snow with this. We're gonna use a lot of our measurable precipitation of liquid in the form of ice. So let's take a look at that. So here's the total ice accumulation forecast for the Canadian model. And it's got about 7/10, 3/4 of an inch of ice. That's freezing rain here in Oklahoma City. That stretches up to about the same amount for Stillwater. Just north and west of Tulsa, you get some heavy stuff up to 1/2 inch, especially up toward Bartlesville. Osage County, Ponca City, you're about 3/4 of an inch. You will get a little bit of light icing here in Tulsa, rather, and then back southwest of Oklahoma City, all the way down I-44, you've got 1/2 inch of ice or more into southwest Oklahoma, and then of course you have some ice down here in the western parts of Texas. Dallas-Fort Worth, no ice expected for you. So this has been a consistent model both in the placement and in the amounts. And the placement has been consistent in this corridor, while other models have been over here. Some models have been over here, some models have been over here, but this hasn't really wavered in any, which is good to see. Now we take a look at the snowfall accumulation, because remember, a lot of our precipitation is going to be in the form of that ice and sleet. As long as that happens, you can't have snow. Now eventually it will transit over to snow, and when that happens, you're going to get some heavy bands of snow, especially if you have thunder snow. And the model's going to hint at that with 7 inches of snow. Let's see, this is on the northwest side of Oklahoma County, Piedmont area, northeast Canadian County, stretching up into Logan County. There's 6, 7, 8 inches of snow is a possibility. North of Tulsa, there's 8 inches of snow. North of Enid, there's 7 inches. Now, the model will not be able to tell you these exact bullseyes, but what your take home is, 2 things. This is the track, which means I-35 up 44 into Tulsa, and then back out here to northwest Oklahoma, but not too far. It doesn't have much going on out here in the Woodward and the points north and west. It's a very more narrow corridor. Now, you probably get a dusting, but as far as this heavy stuff that we're looking at, this is more likely going to be the aim that we'll see with this. And anywhere in here is fair game for these high amounts, just kind of peppered through. So your house could get 2 inches, your neighbor could get 3, could get 4. It just depends on where the heavy snow bands end up, so it'll be a wide range, but some folks are going to get some heavy snow in addition to the ice that does develop. Okay, so that takes care of the ice and snow. Again, this is just based off of the Canadian. I'll show you the high resolution short-term model that we like to use. That's had a lot of tweaks and changes to it over the last couple of years to make it perform much better. And we're going to show you how it breaks down. And this is why I think the precip should start a little earlier than what the Canadian model was thinking. So as we go through time, this is about 6 o'clock. So it's starting at 7 o'clock. It's starting to get that light precipitation here in the south of town. It's not a huge difference in time. It's just 2-3 hours earlier. But that can happen. As we go through time, though, you can see what it does. By midnight, it's got heavy freezing rain and sleet here stretching from around Tulsa back into Oklahoma City. And it just gets heavier and heavier overnight. There's 2 o'clock in the morning. It tries to change over to all snow at 3 o'clock in the morning. Tulsa's getting slammed. As we head into the 6, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning hours, it starts to move out of central Oklahoma. Still lingers in northeast Oklahoma. Might even get some residual flurry activity there through the morning hours here in Oklahoma City, but everything's out of the state, looks like, by lunchtime Friday. Now, what does it do with the total amounts of precipitation? Keep in mind, this model has been colder, so it has had in the past produced hardly any ice with it. It is just now starting to produce ice with it. I think this trend will continue. In other words, these ice amounts, which line right up with the Canadian, they're the same area, right along I-44 corridor, back up to Ponca City and Bartlesville. I think this will expand a little bit, and these amounts will come up closer to that half-inch of ice forecast period. Now let's take a look at the snowfall totals. And you can see the heavy round line from Lawton right through up through 44 through Newcastle and Blanchard and Noble, and we've got even looks like Norman and Moore getting some good snow out of that. Oklahoma City, of course, Stillwater, Tulsa, you guys up there, and there will be some pockets of heavy stuff in here. And there's a 10-incher, there's 11-incher. What was this? A 12-incher. So again, but this is assuming that you don't get hardly any freezing rain and sleet. And I think that's a falsehood. I think this model will err in that. So these numbers will need to come down by at least a couple of inches at the minimum. It may come down by half of this, but still, 5 inches of snow on top of a half inch of ice is a nuisance for sure. Okay, so let's move on now to the wind. In my blog, I wrote 2020 ends with a blizzard, and I probably had a lot of you going, blizzard? What nonsense are you talking about, Tuttle? Well, if you look at the wind speeds with this event for Thursday evening, they're up around 50 miles an hour, moving in from southern Oklahoma as this upper level low deepens. There's a 52 here in Oklahoma City. There's pockets of the upper 50s southwest. As we head at 3 o'clock in the morning, there's a 51 moving through. Up here in southeastern Kansas, there's up around 60. And so that strong pockets of wind will continue through Friday morning. So here's Friday lunchtime. They're finally starting to die down across the state. So you will have blowing snow, drifting snow. If the snow is coming down heavy, you'll have blizzard conditions. And let me do one other one here, because we looked at the wind speeds on 2 of these different models. over the last couple of days. So this is the HER model, and it's similar. It's got those pockets of yellow you see on the map just kind of sprinkled everywhere as this system rolls through. So there's not one any particular place that's more favorable than the other. It's just kind of all of central and parts of western Oklahoma for the wind. Okay, so we're wrapping things up here. Here's a look at the European model, which this is its ensemble spread, so 50 plus members, and they all say snow. So in other words, European model, which usually does fairly well, says it's not even a question whether we're going to get snow. Now, it doesn't have many of these members going very high. Most of them are in the lower category. This is Oklahoma City, by the way, but that's because I think the European is erring in one aspect. I think it's too far west. This is the look here, and it takes the ensemble blend of about 1 inch through Tulsa and then back here to Norman. Then west of that, it ramps up pretty good, and it's got the higher amounts out here just east of Woodward. It pulls up 6+ inches to 8 inches of snow. Now, I will tell you this. This trend, or this panel for tonight, has actually changed a little bit. It was here and here for the higher snow amount. So it's actually shifted to the east, and I think it'll continue to shift eastward to match the other models a little bit better. Its control run, which is just the one run it picks as its best, has already done that. It's shifted to the east just a little bit, by about a county. So if we can keep that county shift a little bit east more, it'll come in more in line. But you can see how if you have to deal with a lot of freezing rain and ice in this area, you will limit your snowfall totals. Where you get to deal with all snow, you have the potential to have some ridiculous snowfall amounts. And this is in the purple shading, which is anywhere from 6+ inches of snow. If we look at its probability of seeing more than 3 inches of snow, these numbers continue to go up. It's basically 100% confident of more than 3 inches of snow out here just northwest of Oklahoma City, say from Enid down to the south and west. So it's not even a question as far as that is concerned. I'm going to pull up some of these other maps, see if they've come in. They may or may not have. This is kind of a blend of the start time for models for the precipitation tomorrow evening for the mean. And it looks like it's just now moving to central Oklahoma by about 6 o'clock. It's still a little south of the metro, so that jives with the other ones we were looking at. I have not seen this yet, so I'm kind of getting a first stab at what it's going to try to do here. On the mean, let's see, that's 1/4 to 1/2 inch of ice, looks like, or up to 1/4 inch of ice here in central Oklahoma by midnight tomorrow night. And that's before the event is even ongoing, like hardcore. The new data hasn't come in yet beyond that period, but we'll look at some more when that does. Meanwhile, some of the other ensemble models I like to use just kind of get an idea of where they're all at, and they are all over the place. This is the point forecast for Oklahoma City for ice. Each of these lines are on a scale, and the highest it peaks out at is about 3/4 of an inch of ice. The lowest, of course, is just a little light glaze. The average is up around about 2/10 of an inch of ice, and I think that's conservative. Let's see here. So for the timing, this is another way to look at the timeline and the way the precipitation comes down. So on this timeline right here, this is tomorrow lunchtime, this is tomorrow evening. The red indicates a probability of freezing rain. So you can see, and the pink is sleet. So you can see that the models say we're going to have a greater chance of freezing rain than we are of sleet. The blue is the snow. As we go through time from 6 p.m. to midnight, you can see how we kind of have a mixture of all three. But then once we get past midnight, the blue takes over. So in other words, the probability of more snow and less sleet and freezing rain happens. And that's where we get the bulk of our snow for after midnight, say probably 3 o'clock in the morning up to around 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. Then it starts to drop back down toward lunchtime. Now, there is, of course, some of the runs that do suggest we're just going to lot of just regular rain and not anything frozen. Now, and it's a higher probability of that. Problem with that is these models don't know what the dew point values are, and they're off on their temperature. So that typically kind of should be a warning. All right, so this is probably the last thing I'm going to show you, and we're going to cut you loose or answer some questions. So this is interesting here. I'm going to show you several model outputs of a lot of their different members and their ensembles and their control runs. And we're going to show you where the ice is mainly focused, right? So let's draw this on the map here. So let's do the Tulsa to Oklahoma City to Lawton corridor. and then just a little north and west in there. So let's say this is the sweet spot for freezing rain and sleet. So now let's see how these other models kind of come into play. I'm just going to pick on various ones. I'm just going to go through, and we're going to watch how things evolve. Sometimes they're outside that corridor. Right now we're in the, this is the Canadian output. You can see how the Canadian output is favoring some of these runs are a little east, but then some of them are a little west. But you can see kind of where the center part is for most of this. I mean, there's southeast Oklahoma. That one went nuts. I don't think that'll verify. But now here's the short range SREF. It's favoring central Oklahoma. And keep in mind, let me do this right here for you because I don't think you can see that right there. So let me redraw these. Clear screen. So roughly from here. And something like that. Okay, this is the scale. So when you see purple, that's 3/4 of an inch to an inch. So that's why I was saying some of these models are just stupid on the ice output. There's the SRF. Go to the GFS, you can see that pockets of some significant ice accumulations. And there's some that aren't really all that much, but the GFS is notorious for not doing too well in that aspect. And the European model has had a lot more snow in its output than it has the ice. And it's also, as you can notice, just shifted it outside our little favorable track area. It has most of all the action into western Oklahoma. It is the only model that has pushed everything into far western Oklahoma. If that were to verify, it would be the only model to do so, and it would score the biggest coup that we have seen here for winter storm forecasting, and it would be the biggest outlier of them all. So something to watch for. Now, on snow, that was just the ice, by the way. We'll look at snow, same idea. You can see how the bulk of the models place the snow as far as the heavy significant accumulations. The yellow is 6 to 8 inches of snow. When you see that pop up, when you see the darker yellow, that's 8 inches plus. So you can see how there's a lot of those panels that do show. Sometimes you get some excessive amounts of snowfall out of some of these model runs. But you can also see a lot of these are placed just north and west of our corridor of the significant icing area, which makes sense. Keep going through the European right now. This is all focused out in western Oklahoma because that's where the European has had most of the snow. So there you go. So the trend here for today and for tonight and for tomorrow morning will be, will this solidify the rest of the model data, including the European, and have the biggest corridor for the biggest mess for both the ice, the freezing rain, and the sleet, and the snow. Now, typically, you can't have the best of both worlds. You usually lean heavy on one side or the other, which usually would mean lighter snow totals where you have the significant ice, and then, of course, where you're farther out away from that corridor, that boundary, in the deeper cold air, deeper dry air out in north and northwest Oklahoma, that's an easier call for all snow. Even though you might get a little sleet mixed in the early part of the event, you should have mostly snow for the event, and therefore your probabilities of seeing several significant inches goes up in that area. The question is how far west we want to take that. You can't take it too far west because you get away from the lift from the low. So this is an interesting forecast for sure. So that's it. So if you're just now joining, you missed all of that. Your 30-second summary is tomorrow, go about your business. Tomorrow evening, anytime after 6 o'clock is fair game for light rain to move in from southern Oklahoma into central Oklahoma. It'll be a slow process from south to north. So once it happens here, it may briefly be rain for about 10-15 minutes, but it's going to start to freeze on contact on elevated surfaces. Elevated surfaces meaning bridges and overpasses, trees, power lines, that kind of thing. The actual main roadway should be fine. Ground temperatures are very warm. This is in the early stages of this event. So if you are going to be going out for New Year's Eve plans, just be careful. I think it'll probably be okay, but the problem is getting home. Because once we get to midnight, the precipitation just cranks through the roof. So at that point in time, it's tough because a lot of the times, even at nighttime, the roadways are okay as long as temperatures are around 30 plus degrees, so 30, 31, 32, all right? And it's an elevated event. They usually have to get down around 27, 28 degrees to just coat those roads in thick ice. That's going to be hard to do because those temperatures won't be that cold, or at least they should not be unless all the models have blown it. And you get that heating from below. So what that typically means is you're going to have slick spots you won't see coming, and it's mainly bridges and overpasses for travel. Now, when it switches over to snow, that's a little bit different story because the snow will accumulate and it doesn't run off, so it just piles up and compacts, and that causes slippery surface. So as we transition over to snow for tomorrow night into Friday morning, that's going to be your trouble spots that you're going to have to deal with, and that's going to lead me to my next point here. Any precipitation at all will be out of the state by around lunchtime on Friday. So let's do this here real quick. All right, this is my website. If you go to aarontuttle.com, or if you have my weather app, AT's Weather to Go, there is a link directly on that app in the menu. Just swipe it left to right, and you'll see it, but it is going to be called Oklahoma Road Conditions. So you click on that, and you can see soil temperatures, and right now we're in the mid-40s, which is why there's not that big of a threat for roadways at the present time. But you can look at the highway conditions in real time. Because the truckers, as they drive on the roads, have live cameras that they will upload. And so not only can you find out if roads across the state are closed or the traffic is moving at a moderate pace, or moderate, I should say, moderate meaning there's a moderate problem, or severe means there's a severe problem, which could lead to closed or delays. But in addition to that, you can click on these guys and you can get a picture of what it currently looks like. Now it's dark there, so there's not going to be any lights on this one. Let's go to this one in Tulsa. I'm just randomly picking. So he's got his headlights on, so you can see the roads here clear where he's driving. But that's how you can kind of keep track if you want to travel. You want to know how roads look across the entire state. This is your place to go to get that information, and it's instant. You can click on all, and there'll be a ton of these photos you can click on all live. Okay, so I took care of that. See if there's anything else on here. Okay, so here's something else for you. If you're curious, first off, you can use my weather app to watch the radar trends, and the radar will show you where the freezing rain and snow is. But you can also verify that on this by going to the real-time ping weather reports. So when you click on that, there's a little legend here you can look at, but when you look at the map, it'll just be popping up everywhere with a lot of different things that come up on the map, and that can tell you whether or not it's snow or freezing drizzle or freezing rain or sleet. And if you're a member of that, and anybody can do it, it's open to the public, you just sign up, create an account, you can be one of those reporters. So it's like being a weather watcher, and the National Weather Service gets this information, and then they use that to help out with their forecasting and warning decisions. So it's very helpful for the entire community. Okay, so I think I covered the timing, I covered the amounts. So if you were to average it out, it's about a ½ inch of ice accumulation, so that's enough for power lines, especially with those winds gusting up to around 40 or 50 miles per hour. That's going to cause problems, going to cause power outages. You're not going to be trapped though. This is not a run and grab everything off the shelves at Walmart. You're not going to be trapped at home, so keep that in mind. Don't need to panic on that deal. There's plenty of milk and bread for everybody. So anyway, all right, I'm going to go through a couple of your thoughts, questions, concerns, feedback, hate, love, and then we'll let you go because it is just about 10 o'clock. And I got things to do. Let's see, Jim, no snow in Mustang. No, not yet, brother. Choctaw's in the house. Kayla, I see you out there on YouTube. Little Axe is in the house. No, the October storm was different, Mindy, because that was anywhere from 1 to 2 inches of ice across the state. That goes in the record books. This is not a record book as far as a pure ice storm. This is a mixed bag of just all of it, and in those type of situations, you seldom get more than a ½ inch, or maybe even 3/4 inch of ice, because you get too much other stuff mixed in. If you guys on YouTube and Periscope want to leave your comments, do so here real quick, and I'll read them and see if I can answer any questions you have. I'll pull up the patron page here. Once again, thanks for all the stars tonight. I didn't get to give a chance to give everybody a shout out, but I appreciate every single one when you guys send them. You guys are awesome. It's just a way to support AT's Weather as a crowdfunding source. Okay, so on the patron page here, let's take a quick look. All right, so good to see you, Jessica. Karen, always on time. Larry, yes, I did it again. I hear you. Weather is the weather, though. It's not going to wait for us. Denise, good to see you. Rhonda, Deborah, let's see. I know, Perry, it's ice. Let's see. Let it snow. Some of you guys want some snow. Thank you, Dina. Happy New Year right back at you. I'm going to go to the main page, and I can only see about, I think, 20 or so comments. Jody had some fun in Norman today. I see that on YouTube. Way to go. It had Nat had an inch of snow in Seminole. Now you're talking. I'm actually jealous. Brian wanting for some snow in Yukon. I don't think that'll be a problem. And yes, Tulsa will get some snow. I just saw that comment. Okay, the main page for Facebook. Let me go there real quick. All right. Loving this forecast, says Deborah. So when will the ice be melted? So that's a good question. So on Saturday, as we go throughout the day, anything that's out there will have melted in the afternoon. Continue to melt from that point on to the weekend. So we're going to warm up for the weekend. It'd be a little retarded for like the quicker temperature climb will be retarded because the snow helps to offset that. So it's a big albedo event. So it kind of helps to keep temperatures at the surface colder than what they otherwise would have been. For radiation purposes. So, but it'll eventually melt, and the ice, of course, will also melt as well. That'll melt at a faster rate, and so it won't be that big of an issue, which means that there are a lot of power outages. The crews will have a much easier time to get to them and fix them, especially the trees are out of the way now. We've already gone through that mess. So I don't anticipate as much of an issue last time, even though there will be some of you without power. Okay, that was a good question, though. If you guys that are out asking that question about driving, like I said, everything's fine until tomorrow evening. That's when things start to get a little messy. Central Oklahoma, and again, bridges and overpasses primarily is what we're talking about until late tomorrow night, and that's when the snow piles up in the roadways and those become slippery. Brennan says, thanks for I was the only one to call the sleeper event snow in Tulsa. I'm glad I got that right there. I'm angry though because it didn't happen in Oklahoma City. It moved just east of us. But yeah, the sleeper event did occur, but it was a narrow band. That was a hard one. Of course, a lot of it melted because the ground temps are so warm anyway, and the actual air temperatures hung around 32 to 34 degrees. So it may have snowed to beat the band, but it didn't last long. Doug, I see those clapping hands and the stars. Thank you, sir. Jenny, no on the milk and bread. Will it snow in Lawton? Jeff, yes, it will. John, he did not give all of his milk and cookies to Santa. That's too bad. He hogged them. Now he's going to eat them himself. You're welcome, Cecilia. Janet is way late to the party. So late, I can't even believe it. You missed the recap. You were so late. Can we get on your weather app and see the weather in the future like you do with all the models? Joe, yes, you can. So on the app is a direct link to my website, aarontutleweather.com. And on that weather data tab, there's all kinds of stuff on there, including future radar and some other things. So take a look at that. Sounds like you need to be using Tipsy Toe after midnight. Well, Michael, probably a lot of you would do that anyway. But if you're going to be out for New Year's, just be safe. And you know what the forecast is. Take your... You are responsible for yourself, despite what current societal trends tell you. Each of us are responsible for our own actions. Now, society will tell you you're not responsible for anything. You can blame everybody else but you. Those people didn't grow up with parents that, taught them anything. So don't listen to them. You are responsible for your own decisions. So if you want to go out in the evening, especially after around midnight or so, just know what the forecast is, what the weather is. Whatever happens, happens. Just be safe. Be careful. All right, that is it for me. I got to get out of here. We will do this again tomorrow. What am I doing tomorrow? Yeah, I can do a lunchtime update tomorrow, I think. So look for that. Maybe around 11:45, something like that. And then I'll go live again tomorrow night around about 9:15, something like that. I usually wait for the latest model data to come in. Let's take a look at that before we dive into it. So that's it for me. All right, listen. Just another winter storm. We'll be just fine. We'll talk again soon. Sleep well, everybody. See you tomorrow.